Greetings, my name is Kerry and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking a little bit about some new stats that I'm going to be sort of looking at for myself in 2020 to help me understand my reading habits a bit better and to try and help myself track a bit better when I'm reading diverse books, and hopefully this will help me to recognise if there are gaps in my reading or if I should be and identify ways to help myself read even more diversely. I'm going to talk through the spreadsheet that I use to track my reading. So I use Goodreads, but I also have a spreadsheet that I use to record all the books that I buy or borrow or read. Buy, borrow and read, I should say. So I'm just going to talk through the different pages of that. I'm going to put in screenshots on the page as I'm talking about them. If I'm looking down, it's because I've got my laptop here and I would hold it up, but the brightness doesn't work, so I'm going to put in screenshots. So I'm going to talk through each page of the spreadsheet, and then the final page is the newest page. So I started using the spreadsheet to track what books I was buying and reading in 2016 and to have a bit of a comparison. 2016 was the first year I put a limit on how many books I was planning to buy. I didn't stick to it that year and I haven't stuck to it any year since. But I'm going to try really hard this year to stick to the limit. It's not going well so far. But anyway, so I designed the spreadsheet then to help me track what books I was buying, what books I was reading, and whether I was managing to read the books within the same year. And it's sort of grown a little bit more elaborate since then. But so it starts with this summary page, which you can see this is 3 weeks into January that I'm filming this. So you can see it's got number of books obtained, which is books that I've bought and been given, and books that I've borrowed that I haven't returned yet. Once I return them, I'll show you on that page in a minute. I put a mark against them and then it subtracts them from this total on this page. And the next line is the number of books I've read, the number of books I've actually bought, and then the number of books that I've read that I own. Again, you'll see when I go through the other pages how I work those stats out. Books obtained and read this year, so that's books that I've both bought or been given or borrowed and read within the space of the same year. Number of rereads and the number of books that I've read that I have borrowed. So not all of those stats were included when I first made the spreadsheet, which is why they're in a slightly funny order, but I couldn't move them around because I didn't want to play around with the formulas too much. On the other side, we've got the count of how many books are on my Goodreads to read list at the start of the year and my Goodreads read list at the start of the year. And then we've also got the to read and read count for the end of the year, which I'll put in when I get to the end of the year, obviously. And then we've also now got an extra one, which is my book death row start and end count. So you can see there how many books are on under each of those categories. And the day of filming, I'm not sure if that's the same as the day that I'm going to do the photos, my number of books obtained is already higher than my number of books read, as is my number of books bought, which is not the way it should be, obviously. So moving on to the books obtained page, you can see I've got a list of the books that I've bought so far this year. So I've got columns for the books I've bought, the books I've been given, and the books that I've borrowed this year so far. Once I've read them, I put a cross in the box and that then adjusts the totals at the bottom of the page. So at the moment it's showing that I haven't read any of these books. And when I make changes to this page, it also changes the summary page as well. Next we have the list of the books that I've read and where they've come from. So we've got owned books, borrowed books and rereads, so that it keeps track of whether they are from my own TBR or others. And again, when I make changes on this, they are copied into that first summary page, so it keeps track of the stats for me. Next I have my comparison page. Whenever I add books to the books obtained or the books read list, I then have to copy and paste them into this list. And if a book appears on both sides of the spreadsheet, it pops up on the books on both lists, and then it keeps a track of how many I've bought and read within, or obtained and read within the same year. And again, those stats, actually I'm not sure if they do from this, some of the stats go in from this page into the summary page, and some of them it's just to confirm against that summary page that I'm tracking the books correctly. So the newest page is the one that I'm really most interested in talking about today. It's quite a long form that I've created to help me try and track better what I'm reading, so I can see how much variety there is in what I'm reading. So it starts with the date I read the book, then I've got the title, the author and the page count. So at the end of each month I'll be able to have a summary of actually the total number of pages I've read, and the number of different authors and that sort of thing. Then I've got a column for what rating I've given it, where the book has come from, so the source, so that's like from my own TBR, from the library, or borrowed from a friend, or that sort of thing. Whether it's hardback or paperback or ebook or audiobook. I don't tend to read a lot of ebooks or audiobooks, but they will be included on there if I do happen to read them. The genre, so that is what genre I consider it to be, which I may disagree with the people of that, and I try to be as specific as possible with that if I can. If it's a sub-genre, I'll call it the sub-genre rather than the main genre. So like at the moment you can see there's a book on there that's magical realism, so that's a subset of fantasy, but it's fantasy that takes place in the real world. And then the age group, again, this is based on my opinion, so other people may disagree about what age group I'm putting stuff down as, but that's just where it fits for me. And some of that will be influenced by what category, if I've got it from the library, what category it comes under. So some books that are generally thought to be YA within the world, but if my library shelved it in the adult section, then I tend to go along with that. But again, it's down to my opinion of how it reads to me, so all of this is based on my opinion, really. And then we've got the publisher. This is to help me keep track of how many indie books I'm reading as well. If it's an imprint, you'll see there I've put the imprint first and then the publisher that they come under in brackets to help me see if they're from the big five or if they're independent. The nationality of the author, if the author considers himself to be of dual nationality or a subset of a nationality, then I've included that as well. So at the time of filming I've read almost exclusively American authors, which is interesting, really. The gender of the author as well, this is as far as I can tell from what they say about themselves online, so it involves doing a little bit of research into what they say about themselves. Again, I'm reading a lot of cis women at the moment, so that is something I'm going to be looking at in the future, of trying to read more diversely, is not just reading exclusively cis women. Then I've got to track what challenges they represent for myself and my year. So we've got independent publishers, Start on Your Shelf-a-thon, Book Death Row, Read Around the World, and completion of series. So those are the 5 main challenges that I'm focusing on for myself for my reading this year. And then we've got 2 things to look at the diversity reflected in the books. So I've broken this down into author diversity and character diversity to try and keep track of if its own voices, and also because those are different things to me. Like a book can have a lot of diverse characters, but the author is not a diverse author, if that makes sense. And I want to read both. I want to read books with a lot of diversity within the characters, but I also want to read from a range of authors. Again, this is based on what the author says about themselves online, so they may not be out within whatever category this refers to. It's just if I can find out about that online to put them in that category. If I find out at a later date a bit more about them, then I can add that in at that point. So I've got BAME, which is Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic. That is a UK term that is roughly equivalent to person of colour, but minority ethnic makes it slightly wider, so people that may be considered white but are from an ethnic minority are included in that. So I was doing a bit of research about which term I wanted to use and read some people talking about this term that say it includes like traveller communities and Roma communities that would be considered white but are ethnic minorities within the UK, and so are marginalised in a similar way to people of colour. And so to me that term felt a bit more to me as a white person, that term felt a bit more inclusive. Others may disagree with me on that, but that is why I've chosen to use that term. And then we've got LGBTQIA+, so anyone that considers themselves to be a part of that community, authors with a disability, with a mental health condition, a neurodiversity, or other. Other is anything that I think classes them as a diverse author that doesn't fit into one of those categories. And then similarly we've got character diversity with the same categories. So far actually this year I've managed to read quite a lot of books with diverse characters, which is quite good. And as you'll see, I've got one that fits into the other category on that as well. That was for The Calculating Stars, where the main character is Jewish, which I wasn't sure whether to include that as BAME or not, because it is a people group, but it's also a religious group. So I settled on that being other. There are also a lot of minority ethnic characters in that book, so I thought I'd class that as other, so a diversity of religion can come as one example of what comes under other. So hopefully when I get to the end of 2020 I'll be able to look back on the spreadsheet and give you some really more in-depth stats about what types of books I've been reading, what types of diversity I've been looking for within novels, and hopefully actually once I start tracking it, I'll be able to target more diverse books. Another reason for doing this was that one of the ways I'm trying to read more diverse books is the Read Around the World challenge that I was doing, but I was realising that I was reading books that were repeat countries and then not tracking that it was like not a British author or an American author. So like I've read a number of other books from authors from India, but because I already tracked that on the website, I wasn't tracking further ones. So I wanted to have a way of recording when I was reading books from authors from around the world that were countries that I'd already covered, if that makes sense. So that was one of the reasons for doing it, but ultimately is to try and push me to read even more diversely than, or to record how diversely I'm reading so that I can encourage myself to pick up books from different diversities and intersectional diversities as well. Hopefully that's made some sort of sense, and hopefully that will give you a bit more of an insight into where my new stats are going to be coming from when I film my wrap-ups, because again I don't know if I'm going to be posting this before or after I post my January wrap-up, which will include some of these stats. You'll be able to see if I have, how this is starting to work in encouraging me to read more diversely, hopefully, and giving me some more, or giving you some more insight into my reading and what kinds of books I'm trying to read. So hopefully some of that made sense. Let me know if you track your reading in a similar way, what tools you use. Actually, I was influenced in this, I should mention, by a spreadsheet from Megan from Tome Infinity. She shared her Google Drive spreadsheet on Twitter, and I had a bit of a look at that, and there were some bits of it that I really liked, but I wanted to track my reading in a slightly different way. Some of her diversities that she tracks helped me to distinguish what I wanted to include in mine, so shout out to her. I'll link her channel down below as well. She's got a great channel. Go and check her out. So yeah, let me know how you track your reading. Do you just use Goodreads? Do you have a spreadsheet? Do you have other ways? I do also have a reading journal, which is what I use to make my notes for my videos. I might flick you through that at some point. Let me know if you're interested in seeing that. But anyway, that's all for today, so thank you so much for watching, and please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and follow me on my social media to see up-to-date news about what I'm reading. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Goodreads. You can find that information in the description box below. But that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!